Hi everyone, good afternoon. So we see people that's still coming in, but we will start soon. So if you still have friends or your teams that you want them to join, so just feel free to pin them, or you can just share them the Zoom link so that they can join in as soon as possible and they won't miss any information that is going to share by the speaker later. Okay, cool. So before we start, just a quick introduction about myself. So my name is Lermin from 1337 Ventures. And again, welcome everyone for the webinar in alignment with the cohort 2 of Digital Tourism Innovation Lab. So just for your information, Digital Tourism Innovation Lab is an initiative by MDEC together with 1337 Ventures with the objective to support the development and also the innovations of tourism tech solutions by startup and tourism-related company, mainly in Malaysia. And if you wish to know more, you can scan the QR code and you will be led to the websites about Digital Tourism Innovations Lab. Yep, so in this afternoon, it's our pleasure that we have Nigel Wong, an expert in the travel industry. So a bit introduction from the background of the speaker for today, Nigel. So Nigel entered the travel industry when working in Australia, developing one of the most popular and active online adventures travel site back then. So in 2009, Nigel returned to Malaysia and founded an agency dedicated to promote ecotourism and adventurous travel. So if any one of you coming from the field, this is where you can ask questions. But of course, you can also ask more questions related to topic today. So without further ado, I will pass the floor to Nigel, where he will explore more with us on Malaysia travel market preference and what are the emergent trend and emergent needs in this year and also upcoming years. So yeah, passing over to you, Nigel. Stop sharing my screen and yeah, you can put the screen up.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Can you all hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, fantastic. First and foremost, thanks, Lermin, for the introduction. But it's Nigel, not Nigel.
Hi, Nigel.
It's okay. I've been called worse. I've been called Tiger, Angel, and at one Starbucks, they actually pronounced my name as Nigger. So you can imagine how odd that was trying to say, yes, that's my coffee. Anyway, very nice to see all of you today. So I've prepared a very simple presentation as requested. And just to give you a bit of an overview of what are some of the travel trends that are happening in Malaysia and how it affects Malaysian tourists going in and out. It's also going to be a little bit of probably a view on what's happening in the region as well. And maybe later on towards the end of the presentation, I'll give you a bit of insight as to how some of our partners overseas are viewing Malaysia, both as an outbound destination for them, and of course, Malaysians going to their countries. So without further ado, I am going to share my screen. Okay. Right, can everybody see the slides?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So just diving straight into it. So Lermin has introduced me as a travel expert. The truth of the matter is I come from a software engineering background. We used to develop our own travel software. And the funny story was when I got back to Malaysia, I took up diving. And on one of those trips, a fellow diver who happens to be a politician said, why don't you get a license to operate a travel agency? What he didn't understand was, and what a lot of people don't understand today, was that I didn't want to be a travel agent. I just wanted to develop software for it. A long story short, he wrote me a letter of recommendation. I applied and I became a travel agent. And quite frankly, it's probably one of the best decisions I've made in my life. There's no turning back. So apart from that, I also currently serve as the president of MATTA. Most of you or some of you who are Malaysians will recognize the MATTA fairs. Yes, we organize that. But we also do a lot more. We also do advocacy work, and we also are a trade organization. And so we meet with a lot of delegations from overseas, embassies, trade organizations, and a lot of our work, which people do not see, is actually creating those opportunities for our members. So a little bit more about MATTA. We were founded in 1975. Next year will be our 50th year. And we currently are made up of about more than 3,000 travel agents and tour operators across the country. Now, why this is important is because we're very, very focused on what travel agents and tour operators do. And unlike some of the other organizations, while we work with many different aspects of the industry, our active members are solely licensed travel agents and tour operators. Now, MATTA actually focuses on a few different aspects. They would be, in no particular order, inbound and domestic, outbound tourism, of course, air transportation, which involves everything from working with the airlines down to policies, regulations by MECs, the airport agencies, MAHB. I can't remember what the new one is called. The new commission, the Aviation Commission. We also focus on land transportation, which includes rail, and very importantly, of course, because Malaysia is in between Singapore and Thailand, road entry. We also look at education and training. We have an academy, fully licensed on the MATTA. We look at research and technology, and we will be working very closely with Amadeus very soon. And of course, a very important aspect of the travel industry in Malaysia, Umrah and Hajj. For the MATTA fairs alone, on our sales, it actually basically reflects what's going on in the country. Fun facts, in our MATTA fairs, about 10 to 15% of sales is generated purely by domestic tourism. And this, of course, is a new trend, which is new in Malaysia, and it has actually picked up post-COVID. Okay, so what I'll briefly be looking at today in this order is the current state of Malaysian travel and tourism market. We will look at some consumer behavior and preferences. So basically what motivates people to travel and what experiences they prefer. Although there's a disclaimer here, these trends tend to change very, very quickly. Number three, we'll look at a bit of domestic and ASEAN travel insights. MATTA is also part of the ASEAN Tourism Association. So that's basically made up of associations like MATTA in the 10 different countries, national airlines, national tourism organizations, and national hotel associations. And then last but not least, we'll give you a quick insight into what the MATTA Fair is about and why it's actually a reflection of the Malaysian travel industry. And of course, some of the sustainability initiatives which MATTA is embarking on. Okay, so first up, the current state of Malaysian travel and tourism. Just a bit of data and some trends that we see in domestic inbound and outbound travel. Now, I'm quite sure all of you are familiar with the three different terms, but just for those who are not, domestic simply means people or Malaysians who are traveling within the country. Inbound tourism refers to foreign nationals who are coming into the country, whether on leisure or business travel. And outbound travel refers to Malaysians traveling to other countries. Now, some of the popular inbound destinations, so again, these are for foreign nationals coming into Malaysia, are of course Kuala Lumpur, Langkawi, Penang, Sabah, and Sarawak. Now, Kuala Lumpur, primarily because it is the main gateway to Malaysia, via KLIA 1 and 2. Langkawi, of course, is quite well known as the duty-free haven or resort island of Malaysia. Penang, of course, is very, very famous. It's been featured in numerous programs, BBC, CNN, and a whole lot of other programs overseas. And it's become quite synonymous with Malaysian heritage and culture. And of course, Sabah and Sarawak, this actually was very apparent post-COVID when people were looking for more outdoor adventure, clean tourism, and what the Chinese call lung refreshing or lung washing tourism. Now, the top 5 arrivals, and this is in 2023, are in this particular order: Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, China, and Brunei. Now, the first 3 markets are quite what we expected, because Singapore shares a land border with Malaysia. And so we've got a lot of Malaysians, Singaporeans, which go in and out on a weekly, if not a daily basis. Indonesia, primarily because Malaysia is a Muslim-friendly country. And of course, a lot of Indonesians come over to Malaysia for medical tourism, especially. They look more towards health scanning and non-invasive procedures. We've got a lot of visitors from Thailand, predominantly the southern part of Thailand, again via our land borders. And of course, after China opened up, we've seen a sudden surge in Chinese tourists coming into Malaysia. And this number is expected to increase exponentially, and it already has increased a lot this year. And we're looking forward to more arrivals towards the end of the year. And finally, of course, Brunei, because Brunei also shares land borders with Sabah and Sarawak. And a lot of Bruneians tend to travel into KL for short weekends, especially when it comes to shopping, eating, and just, basically kicking back and having fun. Now, on the right, you'll see the tourist arrivals to Malaysia. This is from 2018 to 2023. It's very common. You'll see these figures or this pattern in almost every country in the world. And of course, the last 2 columns, 22 and 23, shows a significant increase or revival in tourism. And trends are saying that in 2024 and 2025, this number is going to exceed pre-pandemic levels. Now, I mentioned a lot about land borders. So this is just a breakdown of how tourists actually get to Malaysia. So this is by statistics that we got from the Ministry of Transport. And if you look at the top bar, we'll see that most of our tourists actually come in by land. It's expected through Singapore and Thailand. That's 55.77%. Air travel is 36.71%. By sea, 5.58%. And most of this is made up by cruise ships and cruise liners docking at some of our ports. And by rail, 36.71%. Again, this is through Singapore and Thailand as well. Now, if you look in comparison, visitor arrivals to Singapore, we're looking at basically a very different shift in how people arrive in Singapore. Most of it is by air, because we all know Singapore is an extremely popular and strong air transportation hub in the region. So it accounts for 79.1%. And again, similarly for Thailand, where air travel or air arrivals are very, very strong, that's 84.5%. And this is due mainly in these 2 locations, these 2 destinations, Singapore and Thailand. They have very differing, unique selling points. Singapore is a very well-known business hub, and a lot of conferences, international conferences, business events, MICE events, what we call, are actually held in Singapore, despite the costs. Now, for Thailand, it is more of a leisure market, and Thailand is very well known for its, appeal as a free and easy tourist destination. Phuket, Phi Phi, Koh Lipe, Bangkok itself. More of these, the islands, they're very famous to tourists who want sun, sea, and sand, and basically cheap food, cheap hotels, and excitement. Now, these are the top 10 international destinations preferred by Malaysians. So now we're talking about Malaysians going outbound. Now, this data we get from Malaysian Consumer Insights at MAHB, but it actually very closely reflects the purchasing habits we find in the MATTA fairs twice a year in KL. Top of the list has always been Japan. Normally, Japan, Korea used to fight for the #1 spot. But since the visa restrictions were relaxed and since post-COVID, Japan has again regained #1 spot as a preferred destination. It's probably going to get more popular now as the yen is at an all-time low, making it much more affordable for Malaysians to travel there. Second, of course, is Thailand. And again, this is because Thailand is a cheaper destination and again, very accessible to Malaysians by road. Number three, Indonesia. We get a lot of traffic between Indonesia, of course, because it is again a very Muslim-friendly country. So Malaysians do travel there mostly for shopping and leisure activities. Following in number four, South Korea. Number five, Singapore. Number six, Australia. Now, Australia has come up again very aggressive after a number of years in, I would say, hibernation. They realized the need to compete with other countries directly for consumer mindshare. Prior to this, Australia used to focus all its budgeting on partner acquisition. So they used to focus a lot on travel agencies, airlines, and other partners to get the word across to tourists. But now they've realized that they need to have a more direct touch point with consumers, and their new campaigns and their new strategies are a reflection of this. Number seven, the United Kingdom is a traditional market for Malaysia. Then, of course, we have Vietnam, again, a very appealing destination for many Malaysians. China is in number nine, although this will increase. Now, this number is reflected before China announced its open door policy to Malaysians. We already see in this year's MATTA Fair that the number of the demand for China packages has more than doubled. And of course, the Philippines. So far, up to this point, any questions?
I think there are two questions in the chat. One from Vivian about the percentage of travel via rail. Are they from Thailand and Singapore? I think it is a yes. Just how we talk about that when we show the percentage. And I think the second question you can answer it is a 10% arrival to Singapore by sea, mainly via cruise. Yeah, it's quite an interesting fact for them.
Yeah, so correct on both accounts. So the first thing, of course, there's no way anyone else can get to Malaysia by rail. So it's Thailand and Singapore. Yes, and in terms of sea, actually predominantly for Singapore and Malaysia, any inbound arrivals will be from cruise lines. So we're not taking into account ferry arrivals. Singaporeans, for Malaysia, mostly Singaporeans going across to say popular tourist destinations like the Desaru Coast, where they can now do it directly by speedboat or by ferry. But that's a very small percentage. So yes, the question number two, it will be cruise arrivals. Okay, so there are only two questions. We'll move on to the second.
We have one raised hand and also one more from the chat as well. Also
sure.
on
sorry, I can't see the I've got my full screen up, so I can't see. Thanks, Lenny.
Yeah. So for the from the chat, I will address the one in the chat first. So Jeremy is asking, is a 55% of arrival to Malaysia? I think he's clarifying on the graph shown just now, and also where are the folks coming from, which make up the 55% then arrival to Malaysia.
Okay, are you referring to the transportation slide or the general arrivals?
I think it's the inbound 55.70. The slide just now.
Okay, you're referring to this one, correct? The transportation slide.
Yeah, the inbound land.
Okay, so what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Where are the people coming from land?
Okay, again, mostly from Singapore. As you know, we've got a lot of cross traffic there, but also a large number of them will come from southern Thailand.
Okay, does that answer your question, Jamie? Okay. I think we have one more, Bazlan. Maybe you can, unmute yourself.
Hi, Nigel. Bazlan here from Rehat. Good to know that you actually have a software engineering background, very technical background. Because from technology perspective, right, with the momentum that we are seeing, we are gathering momentum for 2026 Visit Malaysia. How can we technology players really bring meaningful impact to their bottom line for the hoteliers and for the B&B players as well, or anything related to that. So because a lot of many times when we go to market, there's a lot of so what, but from your perspective, from what you have seen out there with your technical background, what is the meaningful impact that we could give to the operators?
Yeah. Hey, Masan. Okay, it's a very difficult question to answer simply because a lot of operators in Malaysia, whether they're hotels or whether they're agencies, we're a little bit behind the curve when it comes to technology adoption. And a major challenge is going to be winning the mindset of people to say, let's consider technology as a new frontier for us to capitalize on tourism. Hoteliers are not so bad because of the availability or the existence of online travel agents, OTAs, and Booking.com, Expedia, Agoda, who've already long been in that hotel space, right? For travel agents and tour operators, that is a little bit more difficult because many of them are very small enterprises who rely a lot on very brick and mortar approaches to making their sales. Now, without being too complex about it, in the travel industry, if we look at travel agents and operators, there are the independent organizations that run as independent agencies, everywhere from small to larger enterprises. But there also is a new shift in mindset. So overseas, when we talk about during the pandemic, when a lot of travel agencies and tour operators went bust or almost went bust, their only mode of survival was actually to consolidate and merge in order to maintain, share resources and help the businesses survive, right? But in Malaysia, nobody wanted to do that. Everybody's still looking very inward. The only ones who have come out of this and said, look, there's an opportunity to be had here, were a few wholesalers. Now, the wholesalers are a bit different, where they put in a lot of money, bulk purchase inventory, and then later either sell it directly back to the trade, or what they do is they engage a sub stream of agents who basically they act as their principals, right? And they push the product through these agents. Now, why did I give you that idea? It's because that particular scenario means that we've got two types of mindsets that have developed because of this. Number one, the smaller guys who don't have the resources, especially on the marketing side. I mean, putting up a website now, you can white label, you can, share technology between different companies. That's not the hard part. But putting in the expertise and the resources to market their individual products and to compete with the bigger boys, that is a major challenge for the small players or the medium-sized players. Now, for the wholesalers, they want to capture market share. They want to retain their market share. So for them, it makes sense not to make, not to expose a lot of their downstream agents to a lot of new technology because it's a captive market for them. And so while this is not a bad thing because they're all developing their technologies on their different end, this has resulted in a bit of stagnation when it comes to people thinking outside the square as to how technology can help them. And so, Maslan, after that long explanation, how can you guys as developers, as tech entrepreneurs help the market? I would basically say this. Instead of going purely for a platform approach, which is what a lot of new companies tend to do, because it's the same song that the agents and the hoteliers have been hearing, they've become a little bit tuned out to that, right? You guys may need to look at more intuitive or more dynamic or more creative solutions, not to tackle necessarily mass markets and mass, but to help these companies find their niche, find their strengths, and rather than sell to everybody, focus their efforts on selling to their most profitable markets in the most profitable manner. Now, that could be through a sales channel. It could be by providing, software or applications that help them manage their own customers. And it also could be through, now what is important, linking content creation with what we already have. So there are many, many ways to tackle this. But the one thing I would say is probably don't go down the path of just saying, I've got a platform, put all your product here and we'll sell it to everybody. So I hope that sort of answers your question, Masa.
Indeed, yes. Thank you.
Okay, I think we can move on the next part, please. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so moving on, a little bit about consumer behavior and preferences. Again, that disclaimer, it's very odd because we've seen trends change extremely quickly, especially during the COVID-19 period. We see it as, stabilizing a little bit more now that things are back to normal. But we also realize that because of today's technology, media, the emergence of the Gen Zs, the alphas, the seascape for travel is extremely diverse. It doesn't all change at once. In fact, it will change by segments. So that being said, just a quick overview. This, of course, is from Statista. Most of you will probably have seen this. This is just a quick overview of what people are spending online and on what type of travel and tourism services and products they're spending on. You can see from flights, it's a 2.72 billion market, and that is only going to increase. The reason is airlines are still trying to put capacity back in the air. There's a shortage of aircraft, and there is a shortage of airline personnel, pilots and cabin crew. So it's going to increase, and it's again going to exceed pre-pandemic levels. Right? Now, trains, of course, are also on the rise. A lot of new railway projects have been finished. So, for example, the one in ASEAN is the high-speed rail from Vientiane to Luang Prabang. What used to take a couple of hours now takes only, I think, just under an hour, just over an hour for people to get from Vientiane to Luang Prabang. Right? And trains are being seen as a new sustainable way to travel. And a lot of effort and investment is being put into creating more railway infrastructure. Car rentals, of course, are going up again because of the reemergence of travel. Although car rentals will be a tough market in the near future, simply because of the cost of maintaining fleets and the rise in fuel prices. Long distance buses, that's going to go up, especially in Europe. Year-on-year change for hotels, that's going to go up as well. Those of you who live in Kuala Lumpur will notice that there are a lot of new hotel brands coming in. And this is to cater to the projected rise in demand of tourists into the country. Malaysia is not at the top of its game yet in ASEAN. But even then, a lot of hotel chains are coming in and investing in property. Package holidays are actually on the rise. So for those people who say the days of travel agencies are over, that's a 1.77 billion industry at the moment, and it's going to increase. Why? Because the new trend is that many travelers, regardless of what generation they're in, are beginning to realize that package holidays does save a lot of time. It's convenient, and actually at the end of the day, you do actually save quite a lot of money when you travel on packaged itineraries. Vacation rentals are going up, as well as cruises. So while cruises are a little bit behind on the curve, and that's got to do a lot with the cost of actually refurbishing ships, maintaining them, putting them back into operation. We do expect the cruise industry again to pick up. Now, the top items that people do make plans to purchase, of course, electronics, the top of the list. But what I want to draw attention to is that 6.3% actually goes to travel and vacation packages specifically, right? And again, this is in view of how relevant travel agencies and tour operators are in the whole scheme of things, right? Now, here it does say that the older generations tend to lean towards travel packages and health products, but again, we're beginning to see more and more of the younger generation, especially those with young families, also opting to go on packaged travel itineraries. Okay, just a quick note on what I said about packages. Some of you may not realize, but for travel agencies and tour operators, when we package stuff all together, we leverage on the bulk buy mechanism. So when you come to the MATTA fair, for those of you who've been there, you will probably look and look around and see that there are a lot of package tours, what we call seat and coach tours, right? That are very popular among MATTA fair consumers. And what happens is big wholesalers or big companies, or even smaller companies for that matter, will look at seasons and demand, and they will then package together or buy up inventory for transportation, tickets, ground transport with the operators, and leverage on the bulk buy mechanism to pass on the savings to consumers. So that's how it sort of works when we package stuff together. Okay, so in this slide, we look at consumer interest in traveling. So for those people coming into Malaysia, we are looking at a large proportion of them, surprisingly, whose interests are actually in shopping. Now, that being said, luxury goods are part of this statistic, but not the whole of it. And this is also because while we have competitively priced luxury goods, a lot of the stuff that we have here is not actually of the latest season. So people do come around and they do shop for old season or out of season items when it comes to luxury shopping, luxury brands. This has also taken a drop because the Chinese tourists now are, in many countries, not just Malaysia, are not allowed to purchase as they did before. So brands, luxury brands are clamping down on their policies when dealing with Chinese customers. So a lot of this shopping also comes from in terms of regular goods that Singaporeans tend to buy when they come into Malaysia and bring back to Singapore. It also has a lot to do with clothing and also to a certain degree electronics. Right? When we talk about holiday, leisure, and relaxation, most people do come to Malaysia looking for this. Again, places like Langkawi and Borneo are key among the minds of tourists when it comes to kicking back, just taking it easy. Incentive travel is at 8.9%, and this is slated to rise. I think MySep is now putting more effort into bidding for international events. Medical and wellness is also on the rise. We actually have some of the most value for money medical packages and products available in the region. Not the cheapest, mind you, but in comparison to our ASEAN neighbors, good value for money. And we've got a lot of expertise that is available here in Malaysia. Now, if you look at outbound, some of the key things that Malaysians look for when going out, relaxation, 68%. At the moment, it's also because of our currency. So while shopping is still high on the list of Malaysians' interests, it has always been, most people are beginning to use this to go closer to home, especially in ASEAN, just to kick back, unplug and do a digital detox and just, recuperate and refresh, right? Now, on the other hand, if you look at the third point here, there's also a new demand for a lot of experiential tourism. And you can see this reflected in the exploring and the adventure stats towards the bottom of the chart. Now, we've noticed this in the MATTA fair as well. A lot of our agents are beginning to offer not necessarily expensive, but unique experiences, both abroad and locally. So, for example, I have a friend who is based in Iceland. He's basically got this nice little globe, transparent glass dome, and he puts it out. And in winter, people sleep in it, and they get to admire the aurora borealis the entire night. People are going further afield, going on experiential voyages, to different places, mostly to do with nature. The North Pole, South Pole. They're going as far as the South Americas. Even though the number is small, it's picking up. And even within ASEAN, a lot of demand for hiking, especially, and scuba diving. So these are some of the things that a lot of Malaysians are looking for, especially the younger generation. Now, the intent to travel, in 2024, most Malaysians intend to travel at least 1 to twice a year. And this is followed, of course, by people with basically no travel plans. So when they say no travel plan, it doesn't mean they don't travel. It just means that they fly by the seat of their pants. Let's go next week, let's go next month. They don't plan ahead. Whenever the opportunity presents itself, or whenever the situation is right, they pack their bags and they go. Of course, a minority of them would tend to plan 3 to 5 trips a year. That's a very, very small minority. And that's mostly singles, FITs, who see traveling as a must-have in their lifestyle. Now, the interesting thing is the 48%, 1 to 2 trips, this makes up the bulk of Malaysians. Again, we see this reflected in our MATTA fares. The same people coming twice a year, mostly to purchase trips that coincide with holiday periods or school holidays. Okay, so that wraps up section 2, a bit of travel trends, Malaysians and people traveling into Malaysia. Any questions at this point?
Yep, I think we have questions in the chat. So one question from Wansin: how do you draw the line between hotels versus vacation renters? Yeah, Wansin raised her hand, so maybe you want to open your mic. Yeah.
Sure, that's regarding the first, I think this first slide in the second, before this one. Yeah, this one. So I see hotels and vacation rental, right? So I'm just curious how this is being categorized.
Okay. So hotels will be your standard hotels. The vacation rentals will basically be Airbnb, for example, or vacation home rentals.
Okay, so anything that's not hotels but accommodation then will go to vacation rentals.
Yeah. So in different countries, it tends to be a little bit different. Like in Malaysia, we have a guideline, right? So as long as you're licensed by the ministry, and as long as you are star rated, under the ministry's guidelines, you are considered a hotel. But for anything else outside that, you are considered vacation rentals, or for us, we say Airbnb lah, or even to a degree, which is wrong, by the way, some people see them as homestays. Traditionally, homestays should fall under packages, not even hotels. Right?
I see. Thank you. Can I ask just another question regarding the 2 slides later?
Sure. This one?
This one, yeah. So I'm just curious, right? Because many people say they travel to eat. So regarding on the left slide, which is the inbound one, do you know how F&B expenses is classified?
Okay, unfortunately, Statista doesn't classify this, but I can tell you from experience alone that for many inbound tourists, this means foreign tourists coming in, eating is not necessarily on top of their list. It is a must-have and it is a nice-to-have, but unlike Malaysians, where they make it a point to go overseas to look for food, inbound tourists don't see that as a primary motivation for their travel.
See, okay, that's why it won't even go up in this list.
No, in fact, we find that a lot of inbound tourists, they do want a lot of their comfort foods. I mean, it's very similar to us in a way. Like if you go out, if you've been on a group tour especially, you'll find that many Malaysians, at least a couple of meals that you have to have Asian food, Now, while they are more adventurous and, they will try and go to famous places that sell Asian food, we find that inbound tourists, once they've had their initial fill of the popular stuff, satay, maybe nasi lemak, and a few other local delights, they won't purposely, with intent, necessarily go looking for food as part of their itinerary.
Thank you so much, Nigel.
But on that note, also, you can probably classify that under the shopping section, because when we're talking about spend, this one doesn't look at intent as Statista, but when you talk about spend, shopping will probably also include part of that, because a lot of this data does actually come from shopping malls itself. So that will also include the culinary aspect of it.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Wansin, and also Nigel for the question and answer. So I think we have one more from CY Tan, but maybe I will need a bit of your clarifications on the questions. So you actually asked why choose MATTA Fair at MITEC. So maybe you want to clarify a bit on the questions. Is your CY done here?
Oh, yeah. Actually, the place is quite, I would say, very crowded. I think it's a very small place from what I see from the location. And that place is actually a very high security place. Why you guys choose a place that is not normal people can go?
I think it's okay. I'm not getting quite clearly because it's a bit unclear from your side in terms of on the mic. But Nigel, can you catch it?
No, I actually lost quite a bit of that.
Okay, maybe we.
I heard CY's question. I think he's. Oh, CY, correct me if I'm wrong. From what I heard is asking why MITEC as a event venue for MATTA Fair because of the size is small and things like that. Not easily accessible by public transport. Was that your question, CY?
Yeah. Because to
Okay.
travel to somewhere near the Semantan area is quite hard from the public transport. Why don't you guys do somewhere that is easily to travel to public transport? I remember you guys do place a bus to that place, but from the LRT or monorail, we can't get to that place. Thank you.
Yeah, good question, CY. I get asked this a lot. First and foremost, the availability of venue is a challenge in Kuala Lumpur. Now, we used to be based out of the World Trade Center. Unfortunately, most people do not realize this. When the government changed, the World Trade Center used to consist of two parts, all right? One which is the main building itself, and one exhibition space that was located across the river. Now, when the government changed and things happened, the venue across the river was taken back by its original owners and has now been demolished, and I think they're building something there. And so, number one, we had to move because of the limitation of space, right? Secondly, the venue is very old, and because it is so old, ceiling height was not big enough, air conditioning was not consistent, elevators, escalators tend to break down, leakages occurred. It became not so much of a pleasant experience for shoppers, and received a huge number of complaints about the condition of the place. But the main thing was we decided to move on that count because we needed to upgrade the show again to cater to modern perception, what people are looking for in terms of comfort, experience in their shopping, and to also cater, number three, to the need for our exhibitors who wanted to expand. So in WTC, we couldn't build up our space very well. And so branding options were limited. The ability to capture consumer share was also limited because people couldn't see past the next shell scheme booth, right? And so number four, we did consider KLCC. However, KLCC also has two challenges in terms of the built-up space that we could make use of. If you know KLCC, they have their spaces on the ground floor, the east and west wing, but the upper floors were not very conducive in terms of its facilities. A lot of carpeting, you couldn't construct big spaces, lower ceilings, and more importantly, it was extremely expensive. So while we looked at many venues, MITEC was the most viable of the lot, and we had an engagement with them. And the 5-year plan is that eventually there will be an MRT line running through that location. But in the meantime, as I've mentioned, circumstances just meant that we had to bite the bullet, take a chance, and move.
Okay. Hope it clarify your questions. Okay, we have few more. Maybe we can go quickly on it and then we can move on to the next part. So we have one more from KD. What are the other 30% of the component of inbound travel that is not classified into any of the categories? And we
Okay,
have,
you're referring to this slide?
sorry?
Which slide is you referring to?
Yeah, maybe KD, you want to unmute yourself to clarify on that?
Yes, this slide, correct. On the left-hand side.
Okay, hard to say, Katie, because most of it is not listed in the Statista report, but just giving you a rough idea, all right, of where the rest will go. It's going to be sort of spread out over the other categories that you also see on the right. So people looking for adventure travel, again, what we earlier said on, some people looking specifically for culinary interests, some people looking for religious, what do you call it? Religious travel, because we do have quite a number of temples, especially the Hindu and Chinese temples that people do come in specifically to go to. And of course, you've got business travel, which is not listed in either as well. So the rest of that 30% actually does get spread off over quite a wide range of items. But these are the main ones that we can see from the report.
Okay. This since we are on this slide, right? So we have one question from Danang. So in regards to inbound medical/wellness area, do you have any insights on where do they usually stay? Like, is it at hotel or vacation renters?
Predominantly, they'll stay at hotels because many of these inbound tourists, they do have very special needs. So they either stay with relatives or friends. Friends less common. Relatives, yes, if they have relatives here. But if not, most of them will be at hotels because that's where they'll get the level of service they need to take care of their well-being post-surgery, especially, or pre-op.
Okay, hope we clarify your questions from Danang. Think we can move on, and some of the questions we can address it at the end of the sessions.
Great. Okay, so moving on very quickly to domestic and ASEAN travel insights. This one, I don't think we need to dwell too much on. This is basically how travel trends have progressed. It's a very common pattern, like I said. So 2023 onwards, that's going to jump even higher. Now, we've just distilled a few of the key, trends in why travel has rebounded in some of our key markets. There is an increased interest in travel, of course, as borders reopen and as more countries compete for their open borders. Again, think China, and think suddenly China being able to open up their borders, to Malaysians without restriction, right? That's a major step forward for travel as far as Malaysia and China is concerned. And it's also because more ASEAN travelers are traveling, okay? And this is specifically to Malaysia as well. Malaysia is actually seen as one of the more friendly destinations for ASEAN travelers. And to date, ASEAN travelers still make up the bulk of our inbound tourists. Secondly, our popular ASEAN markets are Singapore, Thailand, again, because of road, and Indonesia, right? They are top sources. But we are seeing an increase in arrivals from, let me see, the Indonesian countries, although not one or two countries specifically, but on a whole, right? This is also due in part to countries like Cambodia and Vietnam experiencing greater wealth, and more spending power. Last but not least, which is still very new, our new AutoGate facility. So now we are now open to 36 countries, for foreign nationals to come in, use our AutoGate for faster immigration clearance, and this will start next month. So hopefully this news is also going to help with us competing for the international market share. Although tongue in cheek, I say we might need to have more AutoGates. I think Arifan knows what I'm talking about. Now, moving on to item 4, and then I think as Leming said, we can actually wrap up with all the questions at the end. just to give you an insight as to what MATTA Fair is and what are some of the sustainability efforts that MATTA is introducing and why. Number one, you can see a picture here. This is actually a picture of the MATTA Fair at MyTech, which CY has mentioned just now. Because of the space that we have, you can see the booth designs are better, people shop with more comfort. And of course, we're not able to mimic international shows by putting up big banners and signs indicating which destinations you can travel to. So it's the experience that we were looking for. Now, this is a quick overview of the last MATTA Fair. Despite being held during Ramadan, which we were a bit iffy about, we actually clocked just over 170,000 visitors, which is quite phenomenal. We actually projected only 30 to 150,000. Next, we clocked about 230 million in sales. Normally, it's about 300. So this is actually a reflection of when the ringgit was a bit weaker. That being said, sales at the MATTA Fair tended to be very extreme in nature. Either very short, very cheap destinations, so domestic did pretty well, and short-haul destinations around ASEAN also did very well. But there were also a percentage of very high spenders, and some of these people would be spending in excess of 15,000 ringgit per person, and they would normally purchase in groups, of anywhere between 6 to 12 people. So it's a very, very wide divide there. This fair, we had 1,344 booths and a total of 278 exhibitors. And we are seeing that there is a lot of demand for Malaysian tourists traveling abroad with the presence of 12 national tourism organizations. And in MATTA fairs in March and September, these NTOs, with the exception of a few key ones, for example, Korea, Taiwan, and Japan, which are there every single fair, they will change and move around a bit. Now, interesting note here, for some of the key destinations, again, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, they are there every fair, and basically their branding has resulted in their destinations being on the top 10 list every single fair that we've had for many, 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 many years. So this is where MATTA Fair actually does very well in positioning a brand or a destination. Now, consumer purchases on domestic and international. Domestic is a bit funny. So while we see Labuan, clocking up 617,000 in sales. Now, this is on a buyer's contest, so not everybody will register, right? It isn't necessarily reflective of the fact that everybody's going to Labuan. So, tongue in cheek, don't take the figures on the left as the gospel truth. Our domestic purchases are a bit weird. They tend to fluctuate quite a bit, right? But what you can take to the bank are the 5 stats on the right. So top 5, as I mentioned earlier, March saw a significant interest in China. All right, now this is basically due to our buyer's contest. There are a lot more reports that come in later. Japan is still on the top. But again, if you look at it, China, Japan, and Vietnam, South Korea, these are the 4 key areas, 4 key destinations that are very popular among Malaysians at the moment. So Japan is still number 1. Vietnam is an emerging destination. A lot of Malaysians going to Vietnam. China is because of the passport loosening of restrictions. And South Korea because, again, of their culture and lifestyle. Italy was a surprise, but travel to Europe by Malaysians, even though much less now, is still fairly strong. Now, just a bit about sustainability. I won't delve into too much. We are now working with a couple of partners, or we have engaged a number of collaborators. We call this the Green Circle Initiative. And basically, it is MATTA's way of educating our travel operators and tour agents on the importance of ensuring that the packages and products they're offering are sustainable. And what we do is we teach them on how to, identify green or sustainable products to be incorporated into the package. Now, we're doing this for 2 simple reasons. Number 1, of course, people are beginning to look for more sustainable options. And number 2, simply because if we don't take care of our, destinations, our natural resources, we won't have very much to sell in the near future. So these are just some of the SDGs which we touch on and some that we focus on. Coming soon, SDG 5, 4, 5, and 9, we'll be working to help especially raise more women in the tourism industry, not just as tourism workers, but also as tourism leaders. Now, the GCI objectives are very simple, and this is focused towards tour operators and travel agents, although the hotels, as well as the attractions and Masios, which represents the MICE and business events industry, all have their own individual programs. For us, we're looking at cultivating talent and building awareness. Why? Because being in a travel agency is very sexy. You know, it's just that people don't realize. They think that being in a travel agency means sitting behind a desk, you know, and churning out paperwork. That's not true. We're also looking at travel agents who are becoming more sustainability aware, right? And so we need to raise up manpower in order to fill the need in our companies. Number two, we're setting the standard. So MATTA is coming up with a minimal set of standards. Currently, we're working with the GSTC to identify those minimal standards, gamify the project, and get our travel agents started on their journey on sustainability. Now, later on, number three, once they have pushed past the basic requirements, the baseline requirements, we will then encourage them to look at certification or accreditation on their own. It could be with any of the accreditation programs that are out there, but what we will do is we will encourage them to take the next step and actually be certified. Number four, what we also hope to do is to help drive public policy. So we are working with a couple of partners, including Climate Governance Malaysia, in looking at having a louder voice when it comes to driving public policy on sustainable tourism, which unfortunately is not given the right amount of focus that it should be. And number five, walking the talk, which is our CSR project, and I'll get more into that in a little bit. So just a couple of key insights on sustainability. A lot of tourists are actually beginning to prioritize sustainable travel, especially when it comes to hotel and accommodation. But we are seeing a lot more demand for green attractions and green tourism products, right? And that's part of the sustainable trend. What we hope to do also is to push culture into the minds of travelers coming to Malaysia and get them to support local communities and not just, the well-known cultures in Penang, Malacca, so on and so forth. Now, a quick one. I think this comes from booking.com. So you can see in the top right corner, sustainability, interest, travel confidence, sustainability conscious explorers, all right, with a high level of travel confidence and a high focus on sustainable travel. Surprisingly, the demand is coming from China and India, right? So while this can be interpreted in many ways, it's good to know that many of these tourists, especially the younger ones, are more aware of what they want in terms of sustainable tourism. So this is what I mentioned earlier on, our CSR project. We work with different artists to raise awareness and funding to deploy back to local communities. This tiger was actually done by Rachel Gray, a British artist, a digital artist. And what we're doing with that is we're using this artwork to raise awareness to tourists coming into Malaysia of some of the treasures, especially the wildlife and natural heritage that we have. And the funds raised from merchandising, as well as from the auction of this art, probably towards the end of the year, will go back into local communities. The tiger itself will go back to supporting local communities in the Belong rainforest through conservation. So we're helping people, we're working with the State Forestry Department to make sure that the tigers are conserved, because that's part of a very, very fragile and important part of that wildlife and food ecosystem and food chain as well. And what we're doing this is we're also helping the local communities develop products, sustainable products on their own, so they don't resort to poaching or don't resort to helping poachers, right? Which is unfortunately very lucrative. So Rachel has come up with 4 paintings, as you can see. And if you guys want to know more, drop by the MATTA Fair or drop me a line. If any of you guys have platforms that are able to help us spread this awareness, and even through the sale of merchandise to pour back into these communities, I'm also all ears and happy to work with you. So again, what we do is we pour the money back into helping local communities earn a living sustainably. One thing that we do in Belum is they've developed a very interesting program where for 2 years during COVID, they have not fished from a 1.5 or 2 kilometer stretch of river in the Belum rainforest. And that stretch of river is now teeming with wildlife, especially fish. And what they want to do is they want to introduce a catch and release program for sport fishing and then open up part of those areas towards glamping as well, or camping, depending on which segment of the market you are. And they need funds to help them build the infrastructure, train people, and also to train people, to be, more sustainably aware of how they create their products. MATTA will also then go in to help package, price, and then promote some of these packages to tourists as well. So this is some of the merchandise that we've done. We came up with it at the very last moment, but it was a big hit at the last MATTA Fair. And we may be working with some of our airline partners through their online portals to help raise funds through the sale of these merchandise. So we're going to be very sustainable at all our MATTA fairs, and we're going to be promoting this message throughout the country. And indeed, sustainability is the future of tourism, especially for Malaysia. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. Just a short insight to what MATTA is doing and what we see from the local travel industry here in Malaysia.
Okay, thank you so much, Nigel, for your sharing the insights and also actively answering the questions. So we have a few more questions coming in the chat. I think we have one from Boss, right? Asking about, do you have any insight regarding adventure tourism in Malaysia and as well as international tourists to Malaysia on adventure tourism area?
Okay, so unfortunately, the answer to your question is no. We are working with Amadeus to get more data, but until that project kicks off, we won't be able to give you the data that you asked for. However, if you want to look for adventure travel data, now I can't recall the exact name of the association again, but you can probably reach out to the International Adventure Tourism Association, something along those lines. They're actively involved worldwide, and they have more granular data on what you're looking for.
Okay.
Lamine, maybe I can add on to that. There's an association, a global association. It's called Adventure Travel Trade Association, ATTA.
That's the one.
Yes.
Hannah Pearson
Yes.
is the contact.
Okay, so this is the link to the website. So Hannah Pearson, is she the Pears Anderson consult?
Yes, she is.
Okay. I think you can subscribe to their weekly or monthly report. I think it's for free, and they publish it quite regularly as well.
Okay, Ayim, I hope you get the contacts, the website in the chat as well. And yeah, your answer. Do you have any more thing to clarify from, I think it's Ayim?
So I just was, because I saw website as a age. So Malaysia means what kind of?
I think it's a bit unclear from your side. Maybe you need to speak a bit closer. Or you may...
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, now it's clear.
All right. So I saw in your data there is a leisure. What kind of activity that you consider leisure? Is that kayaking or any kind of hiking that also considered as a leisure or no?
No, so leisure here refers more towards things like resorts, for example, or luxury. What you said about kayaking, hiking, all that, that's activity. So that could be part of leisure, that may not be. Normally that's under adventure or experiential tourism. But again, they're interrelated. But when you talk about leisure, we're talking about free and easy. You know, they come for shopping or they just come to relax, kick back, enjoy the lifestyle. You know, that's mostly considered leisure.
I see. So no data at all about adventure tourism in Malaysia.
No, but like I think Arifa mentioned, try looking up ATTA or contacting Hannah. They would have more granular data about adventure tourism.
Yeah, because I already make a research. There is the data for worldwide, but we are looking for Malaysian market size.
Unfortunately, my friend, we also want the data, but we can't get it either.
Okay, maybe we can work together.
Hey, my doors are open.
Sure. And I'm really want to know more about how to support about your green circle, because we are doing a platform for adventure tourism. Obviously, we are involved in the sustainable of the green and nature.
Okay, we have a sustainability committee that we meet, I think, every couple of weeks or so. So before the next meeting next month, if you could drop me a line and I'll share my email and contact details with you at the end of the session. Drop me a line via email and then let's see where we go from there.
All right, sure. Can. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Aim, for your clarification. So we have one question on Airbnb guideline that was raised before, like at the beginning of the sessions, but maybe I think I will circle these questions to Arifa. So maybe Arifa can take that questions on Airbnb regulation guideline.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today. Well done, Nigel. Thank you for being part of us. Okay, so with regards to Airbnb, so it's not Airbnb. Airbnb is just a platform that lists vacation rentals, private residential accommodation for short-term rental. So it's actually under short-term rental accommodation category, so which are other than hotels, right? So at federal level, there is a guideline for short-term rental accommodation that has been drafted by KPKT, our local council kementerian. And then it is now being circulated to MOTAC for their review as well. It was supposed to be ready last year, but I think it's taking a bit of a time. But however, federal level guidelines are still up to it's still up, depends on the state as well as the local councils how they want to implement it. So if you notice in the space of short-term rental accommodation, different states treat Airbnb like businesses differently. Penang has a very strict guideline. It is not an outright ban, it's just a very strict guideline that needed to be followed. Penang Island has a separate one. Penang, Semenanjung, Malaysia also has a different way of treating STRA. Some other states are more open, like Sabah is open, Selangor definitely is open, Langkawi is open, Kedah is open. They don't restrict STRA. Melaka, for example, has, at least for Melaka City, Kota Melaka, they also have what do you call it? A license, a special license called townhouse license that operators can apply to make that business legit. So it's actually like that lah. So if you want me to give an answer, straight answer, there's no straight answer. So that's my response to it.
Okay, hope that answer your question, CY. So now we can circulate the questions back to Nigel. So we have questions like, what is the reason for the number of tourists out choosing relaxation as the largest number? Is there any specific consuming behavior reason or any specific psychological reason on that?
You're referring to Malaysians going outbound, I presume?
Yes, indeed, correct.
Not really. There are theories as to why people go out on relaxation. Relaxation is a very wide a very big area. Very hard to classify anything specific under it. But we generally look at relaxation as tourists who go overseas primarily to, their intent is primarily to escape, working life and the grind of being at home, or the environment of being in your own country, right? It's, again, basically maybe even to escape stress, right? And so while there is no definitive data, most people, when given a survey, they say, why are you going overseas? We're just going overseas to relax and rest. Mostly it's to get away from work. We also think that it's probably because that during the COVID period, while the whole revenge travel thing is a bit passé and outdated, people are still recovering from that proximity that they've had during the COVID-19 period. And so the desire, we're talking about the desire just to get out, to be on your own, to disconnect, is actually still very, very, very strong. And we see that in a lot of the, I can't remember what generation you'll be in, but probably the Gen Ys up to the millennials. Most of them traveling out, basically travel for this reason, being able to disconnect, get away from their local environment, not think about work for a while. And even if they go on family vacations, take the kids out of school, go back to the importance of being in a family. So they don't have any particular intent. It's not particularly to shop, not particularly to hike, not particularly to dive, not particularly to, see tours. It's just to go out and, again, just disconnect. So that's what we look at in the ascertain as relaxation, rest and relaxation.
Okay, thank you for your clarification.
No worries.
Okay, I think we have one second questions also from Loka. What is the role of social media platform from your opinion? Like, how important is that? I think the context behind is when we talk about our daily activities, they actually see a lot of travel agency influencer, KOL or agency prefer to promote the outside world rather than our own country, which is Malaysia, like local tourist spots. So think to ask on your insights on what are the role of social media platform.
Okay, tough question to ask. Again, it goes back to psychology. So social media is without a doubt the best way to get your branding out there, get awareness out into the market, about the attractions in any destination, right? That goes without question, right? What you're asking though is about why it's not so effective domestically. Why aren't agents using the same platform to promote domestic tourism? So the answer lies in how travel agencies and tour operators function and how consumers see them. Now, I would say that this is basically the same almost everywhere in the world you go to, where local tourists will often decide to travel independently on their own. Most of them will have their own agenda in mind. Many people, especially in Malaysia, would stay with family and friends, or they will, rent an Airbnb or a homestay or a vacation spot here, and they will have one thing in mind. As far as Malaysia is concerned, makan lah, all right. But they won't use travel agents because, unfortunately, in Malaysia, they don't see the value of going on a tour or a package that has already been curated for them, right? Now, while I say that this is commonplace in many different countries, in Europe, for example, when you wanted to go on a tour, especially when it's experiential or there's something to learn, right? Europeans actually do pay travel agencies to go on a fixed or a curated itinerary because the intent is different. They're more curious, they want to learn. They place a lot more emphasis on going deep into the experience, learning about the experience, not just the surface like what we are currently used to. Drive around, find good food, eat, kick back, shake legs, talk nonsense, or go to the beach with the kids and then come back. It's a very shallow mentality of domestic tourism that we have now. So hopefully this will change as the younger generation who are actually more interested in experience, rather than just going on a holiday. Hopefully that will change, and local travel agents will start to see the value in focusing more on domestic experiences.
Okay, thanks for the answer.
Yeah.
But is there any like planning or solution that you consider in your mind for tourism in Malaysia, especially because what we see is currently, as me for myself as a youngsters, I see a lot on TikTok, on social media, Instagram, people, especially local itself, they tend to promote outside world compared to Malaysian itself. I mean, is there any plan from the government, from the MATTA fair, to promote, to branding Malaysia, to positioning Malaysia as one of the best countries for travel in Asia, Southeast Asia especially?
Sure.
Thank you.
There are travel agencies and tour operators that do that. In fact, MATTA Fair does that by dedicating an entire level just to domestic tourism, right? And we do this at a cost to the association. So that's our contribution. Our sustainability program is designed to do that as well. But again, back to the basic fundamentals of your question. It's going to take more than just the government or MATTA or any of the other associations or even the agents to change the mindset of our consumers. As long as there is no mindset change from the people paying the money, there is going to be less focus on domestic tourism. Now, this is a bit sad, but it's a bit of a vicious circle. The question is, where do you start, right? So maybe to give you an idea of what we think could happen, right, is that number one, there needs to be a more concerted effort by the government, especially, right, promoting service and quality of service, not just for travel agents and tour operators, but any other attraction or service or hotel, in order to change the mindset of how consumers spend their traveling dollars, right? That's the first thing. Secondly, the governments, whether state or federal, also need to be more strategic in how they promote different aspects of tourism to the domestic market. So the domestic market is now very fixated on, just jalan-jalan, cuti-cuti Malaysia. Again, very casual, FIT based, no particular intent, They need to focus more on helping destinations reach the right domestic markets, especially the younger generation, by either through grant funding, helping them to come up with smart targeted marketing campaigns, or actually taking on that role of channeling a part of their budget and efforts and resources towards targeting the younger segment of Malaysians. The older segment of Malaysians already know what they want to do. People like me, for example, we're scuba divers, we're adventurers, we're happy to go with travel agencies because we can't do this alone, right? But they need to focus on the younger generation who not only want to do things they can't do on their own, but also want to do things that, okay, let me put it this way, let me rephrase that. The younger generation, they're looking for excitement. They're looking for differences in products and services and experiences, right? Very different from the old generation, which are looking for convenience, okay? So apart from that, there's also a trend that shows that the younger generation, while they want to choose, they also want to have the choices made for them. So right now, a lot of the marketing that we do is focused on very general marketing themes, the beauty of Malaysia, the attraction of a place, but it actually doesn't drill down to what the emerging market actually wants. And it's not just the attraction of a destination, but also, how should I put it? There are niche requirements in what makes a packaged holiday or a packaged itinerary or curated itinerary attractive. I don't know whether that sort of answers your question.
Yeah, that's answering my question. So the point is, this is not a short-term answer. This is a long-term. It's based on our generation, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for the questions. I think there are no more questions. So we actually have one question asking about, is there any leading OTA in Malaysia, like Malaysian born? But I think Arifa had answered the questions. Don't think we have any so far because it's not feasible business to go head to head. I think we also encounter like similar solutions in our first cohort of this program, which is still need more time to develop it. Yep. But of course, feel free if you have any ideas that offer different or more competitive value propositions. I think you can apply to our innovation lab for cohort 3. Yes.
Maybe I can give a quick sharing.
Mhm.
My team and I, we recently met a new OTA in the market. They are based from South Korea. Their business model is different than the usual business models of the global giants, and they are generating good revenue and making good traction. So I've actually invited them to attend our demo day. So hopefully you all get to meet the team later. Okay.
Nice. Okay, thanks, Arifa. I think that will be all for the questions and today's. If no one have more questions, I think that will be all. Thank you again, Nigel. Am I right?
No worries. Maybe I just want to add something here because Arya just sparked a thought that I forgot to mention earlier on. If you guys are looking to develop or to build something, on the technology front to help tourism in Malaysia, I can tell you that there is a big need to organize information. So we don't have anybody that's looking, or has produced something where we're proud or able to say, look, if you want to know everything on Malaysia, or not everything, sorry, that's the wrong word, but if you want to get information on a variety of different things in Malaysia, this is where you go to. I'll go back to, what a blog is supposed to do. The most effective bloggers cater to a specific market. They have a specific theme, and they become an invaluable resource to that market that they're targeting. Now, right now, with the advent of all this social media, it's still very unmanaged, right? And so if somebody were to come up with an information repository, a living information repository, not just a blog, right? That would be something I think Malaysia could use because there isn't a lot of consolidated information as far as Malaysia is concerned. Secondly, transportation is going to be a key thing in the next 5 to 10 years. I've always told people that tourism should be less of a promotional game now and more of a logistics game. If you look at some of the most successful travel hubs around the world, Singapore included, for example, Singapore has nothing compared to Malaysia. We have so much more potential. Yet, Singapore has one of the highest, air traffic numbers in the region, in the world, right? And not just in terms of numbers of passengers traveling, but air routes coming into Southeast Asia. And so travel is a key component, and a technology solution which is able to advance that aspect of the tourism industry, whether it's in terms of coordination, facilitation of providers, or whatever other app that helps transporters, do better in what they do. There is a future in that. Finally, and I dare not say this because Arifa is here, but I'm going to say it anyway. The ability to open up, our products and services to the world via payment methods, not just payment gateways per se, but the payment space is, changing so much. And a lot of these payment options are not available to travel agencies and tour operators, right? In the early days, we had an issue with credit card brands, and we still do, where our industry is classified as a high-risk industry. So for many travel agents, getting access to payment facilities in terms of credit card facilities, merchant facilities, is still a big challenge, right? Now with the advent of e-wallets, that's a little bit better, but credit cards are still predominantly the main spending points of most tourists in Malaysia, right? We haven't even considered, crypto, right? In many places in Europe, people are beginning to accept cryptocurrency as payment for travel services. I've seen some solutions in Europe. I don't know whether they're that mature yet, but very interesting solutions where they are pushing the boundaries of taking crypto payment, acting as a clearance house, and immediately clearing those funds, based on exchange rates to fiat currency. And that's going to help us target a different market as well in the very near future. So these are some of the areas that we can look at. Education, manpower development. We face a huge glut in the talent space, right? And people are not seeing travel and tourism as sexy. It actually is very, very sexy. But we don't have anything that helps promote this to a younger generation and encourage them to perhaps consider tourism as a viable career. So there are many, many areas aside from being an OTA, aside from being a sales channel, which this industry actually lacks. So I'll probably leave you guys with that thought in your head, and excited to see what comes out of comes out of the tech space.
Okay, thanks so much, Nigel, for the summaries and also the insight, and also the knowledge that you have shared with us in this afternoon. I think that will be all for today. Thank you so much for those who sign up and also attend here today. After today's session, we'll be sending out the slide together with the recording. So you can always look back if you need any reference or information from what Nigel has shared. Yep. So I think that will be all for today. Thank you, everyone. And for the cohort 2 participant who signed up for the consultancy space, maybe we can take a quick break, like 3 minutes, and then we can continue with the consultancy space, which we will open our breakout room and we'll put you into breakout room. I think it's also for Nigel to have a break as well. Yes. So that's all from us. Thank you, everyone, and hope to see you in next webinar.